Hi to all. This is Sister Nasia from the Department of English. We shall discuss the poem A Tribute to Papa by Mamata Kalia. The objectives of this poem are: students will be able to differentiate the modern daughter and Victorian father and male dominance over women, evaluate the ideals, values, and morals of the present world. And the final one is they'll be able to integrate and epitomize an awakened and audacious 21st century woman who possesses the guts to question, judge, and reject the patriarchal norms. Mamata Kalia is one of the significant poets of the new generation poets like Kamala Das, Eunice D'Souza, Gauri Deshpande et al., who delineate the social predicament, religious barriers, and its restrictions on women. Mamata Kalia, a bilingual writer, writes both in Hindi and English and has published only two collections of poetry in English. Her two collections of poetry in English are Tribute to Papa and Other Poems and Poems 78, in which she exposes ruthlessly the oppression of Indian middle class women in their families, married life, and at large by the male dominated culture, which is not only social and cultural but psychological as well. Her main preoccupation is the boredom of various human relationships, failures and frustrations of married life, indifference faced by women inside and outside their homes, and some mind-blogging social issues. Her poetry also exposes the patriarchal setup of the Indian society in which a woman is not secure even today. She portrays the conflicts between traditional structures and an emerging female I, which gave rise to a different female aesthetic in modern Indian poetry in English. In her poetry, she exposes a sensitive and intellectual woman's predicament in relation to her parents, family, domestic and professional life, and the large outer social life. As an Indian woman poet, she is conscious of her identity in the traditional Indian society and raises her voice against the oppression of women with a great sense of vigor and involvement. Her poetry is highly autobiographical in content, as her early life with a dominant father, a loveless relationship with her husband and his family, and humiliation in her professional life develop her anger and a sense of revolt against the repressive patriarchy under which she is victimized and defeated. So, her poetry accordingly depicts the agonies of women in the Indian patriarchal tradition, which is largely due to subjugation and bondage under male culture. Her poetry shows a rebellious will to fight for the cause of women and demands a world free from discriminative values, hypocrisies, and prejudiced rules. She also struggles for the establishment of women's identity in the contemporary world. She has not only the passion for individuality but also supports the feminist agenda for liberation from patriarchal oppression and other limitations. The poem Tribute to Papa is about the struggles for autonomy and independence by the daughter speakers. Kalia's frankness leads to an open defiance as she says in the poem, "Everything about you clashes with merely everything about me." Here she is talking about her father. In the same poem, she even does not hesitate to speak about her love affair in an unconventional way. She believes in free sex and does not care for morality. She says, "What if my tummy starts showing gradually and I refuse to have it curated?" In the Indian middle class society, daughters have a great responsibility for honoring the family values, and any wrong step by them can dishonor the whole family. In a patriarchal culture, daughters are emotionally compelled to sacrifice their feelings and emotions for the sake of the family. So Kalia ends the poem with an ironic, cautious note as she says, but I will be careful, Papa, or I know you will at once think of suicide. Having refused to be an angel in the house, Mamata Kalia calls her father an unsuccessful man for his lack of imagination and aspiration, for his smugness and complacence. The expression limited dreams brings out the idea of her father as a conventional man who does not want to forego the sense of security and certainty provided by the beaten track. This is one of the reasons why her father never ventured into business. She calls her father a coward who spends useless hours at the temple. Mamta Kalia poses a series of rhetorical questions right at the beginning of the poem, which unsettles the reader instantly. The father occupies a pivotal position in Indian families, and Mamata Kalia dethrones him by confessing that nobody actually cares for him or for his so called clean thoughts, clean words, and clean teeth. The repeated use of the adjective clean brings out the scorn of the poet for the father. She also makes it clear that she does not want to be an angel like her father wants her to be, and therefore she registers a strong protest against the conventional attribution of the image of an angel to women. There is supreme irony when Mamata juxtaposes her father and Rani Lakshmi Bai, for there is hardly any commonality between these two. According to Mamata Kalia, her father is a commonplace, ordinary, middle class man who clings on to conventions. On the other hand, Rani Lakshmi Bai has been hailed as a brave woman who fought against the British in the Indian freedom struggle movement, breaking the conventional barriers of a traditional Indian womanhood. But then she says that she does not want to be like her father or like Rani Lakshmi Bai. Kalia finds this practice of holding Rani Lakshmi Bai as an ideal stale and cliché. She also points out the incongruity between setting up such an ideal while repressing women in real life. To her, this reeks of middle class ambitions and morality to be a kind of mask Mamata owed to portray the social life. The solemn tone she adopts when she talks about disowning him is interesting, as it is actually the father who owns his daughter and not vice versa. Mamta Kalia here represents the attitude of the modern woman who is even ready to sever the emotional and social tie that blinds a father. The clash between the old school of thought and the new school is well brought out by Mamata Kalia. But then the last two lines exhibit Mamata Kalia's ironic concern for her father as she assures him that she would not indulge in any clandestine act which would bring disgrace to her father. Yet, more than a revelation of love, the assurance once again highlights her father's stupidity and cowardice. Mamata Callias thus reveals a defiant attitude towards her father, which is not common in the Indian social setup. The poet portrays a simple middle class father who assumes piety and cleanliness in both his thoughts and words. But the irony is that he wants his daughter to be great, or at least to be like him. A conflict arises, therefore, between the father and the daughter has decided to walk out of the relationship, and in doing so, she has fulfilled twin objectives. The first one is she has shattered his illusion that he is somebody great and that at least his offspring must look up to him for inspiration. And the second one is a father in the Indian context is omnipotent, but Mamata Kalia, by repeatedly asking him, "Who cares, Papa?" simply thwarts the significant role he plays. Thus, Mamata Kalia quietly moves from the personal to the social, Tribute to Papa is the only poem in which Mamata Kalia tries to explore the social theme of the communication gap between the old and the young in terms of values. She figures out an opposition not only to men's dominance over women, but women's acceptance of men's dominance. She shows us the division of two cultures, East and West. Mamata Kalia's personal rejection of the non materialist father, however ironic in its tone, is a tribute to the contemporary materialistic father in India. The poem moves from one offensive statement to another with supreme indifference to traditional Indian values. Not only are the father's ideals for the daughter rejected contemptuously, but his normal way of life sneered at. Coming to the conclusion of the poem, Mamata says the poetic sensibility is almost exclusively subjective in its response to experience of woman as a beloved and to the image of a woman who serves her family patiently and devotedly. Her poem seems to consider the woman's views of the world and her position within it. It is through the eyes of a frustrated woman that she scans her relationship with the world outside. Thank you.